Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for celebrating our 22nd Happiness Happens month with us. I think we probably started this when you were a youngster. So thank you so much for doing that. And this is the first time Jeff and I have actually met on video. I've actually been a follower of his for a really long time, and he was kind enough to also give me a blurb for Practical Happiness. So like I said, Jeff, I consider Jeff a friend, even though we haven't met in person yet, but we will.
We spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time in the Facebook Messenger.
Exactly, because I attend because you always have great content. So I know if you're talking about something, it's something I want to at least be aware of, and you can't say that for everyone. So I really, like I said, I value your insights. So
well, the book is amazing, and obviously, I'm just honored to be a part of it. And obviously, happiness is important to everyone, right? I mean, if you're an American, that's part of our creed, the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. And I think the really optimal part of what you just said, though, is the pursuit of happiness. Oftentimes, we think happiness is just the absence of happiness zappers or happiness challenges, including the mental health challenges. I think sometimes we have to actually say, hey, I'm going to make an effort to be happy. And some people put that in the happiness as a choice, but I think it's still bigger and different than that. We have to sometimes wake up every day and say, hey, I'm looking for happiness. And if happiness isn't around, I'm going to manage those happiness zappers so they're not managing me. So I think it's this combo approach to pursuing happiness.
Yeah. And when I was reading your book, there's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that I discovered, even about my own self. And for those of you who are listening who don't know, I own a branding agency called Branded Media. And a lot of times, I think a lot of times when people are unhappy, it's because they've pretty much, built an identity around something in their life, and sometimes that thing changes, and it feels like you're like, for example, let's just say for God's some reason in my 20s, my brand was like a really cool haircut. Right? And obviously I have no hair now. I mean, how happy would you be if that brand identity gets yanked away from you? And
you're Fabio was known for his big hair in the 80s. I think that's
he would have no choice, right? Like that guy's using every single product you could think of to make sure his hair is still there.
Yeah, he would have to rebrand. But that also is principle 3 of my book. So I love that you brought that on, because happiness changes as we change. And sometimes that's age related, sometimes it's just life, sometimes it's a situation. You just don't know what happens. So
sometimes
thank you for
people in your life to change, right? Sometimes your life identity of happiness is around a person, and that person changes. And like anyway, I know this isn't supposed to be a book promotion, but I recommend everybody pick up the book. You'll learn a lot.
Thank you so much for that. Well, and ultimately we want people to walk away feeling happier and feeling they have tools in their box. And one of the ways we're doing that is putting the 31 types of happiness in action. We're giving people stories so that that story may or may not be for their life, but it'll probably be something they can reflect on and relate to in some way. So for you, I'm kind of surprising your fans anyway, because we always know you for having fun and your humor and you're playful and you always surprise people with different things. But I want to ask you to share the type of happiness relief. I think relief is super underrated, but I know with your team, and you have a big team, you had an issue earlier in the last 12 months anyway that caused some anxiety and stress, and you were worried. And so if you'd share us that story, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So the day was exactly 5 days before Christmas of 2021. And I remember logging in to work, and we use a messenger kind of like Slack. It's called Discord. And I have a huge team in the Philippines. Right now I have 170 people, but at the time I had almost 140 people. And I think it was about 137 people at that time. And I woke up and I went to my computer, and like right now, if I go on my computer, I can see how many people are online. If I go to my welcome channel, I can see that I've got, 4 project managers, I've got 2 assistants, I've got 9 squad leaders, I have 8, 9, 12, 14. Okay, so in total, I have 100, and out of 170 people, I can see that there's about 80 people that are offline right now. And those 80 people are because they probably work a different shift or whatever. But I logged in and I only saw 11 people online. And I was like, that's weird. There were only 11 people logged in for work. I have no clue what's going on. And I messaged people and I said, hey, where is everybody? My own project management team offline, my own assistant, who literally, like Pamela, because Jacqueline worked to arrange this call, and she's like the key holder. She's my gatekeeper. She knows everything. She knows my calendar. My wife is jealous of her because of, if my wife wants to do something with me, it's got to be on my calendar, which is really owned by Jacqueline. That's her name, Jacqueline. And I was completely blown away what was going on. And I found out that there was a very nasty typhoon that has gone through. Typhoon is basically the rest of the world's word for a hurricane. And on this whole strip of a massive islands where the majority of my team actually live. And I was completely devastated. Had no idea what to think. Looking at the reports, it looked like it was, category 4, category 5. It was pretty big. And the relief that I had was, after getting everything smashed and not knowing where everyone is, and then slowly people starting to come online over the next day or two. And it was just gut-wrenching. It was like I couldn't sleep. I had the worst time. The stress, anxiety. I was canceling calls left and right. I sent out emails to my clients letting them know what's going on, to ask for prayers. And then over the next couple of days, I found out that, several of my team members were without water, without power, some without roofs. My own assistant had to rebuild part of her house, and pretty much all her windows were smashed out on one side of the house. So it was a hopeless feeling. That was it, Pamela. It was more of a hopeless feeling, because I'm only one man, and I have 138 people that work for me. I wish I was made out of endless printless money, but I just thought about what I could do to help. And I also found out that there were 8 people that were on a certain area that was hit very badly, that didn't have any power or internet for over almost 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up going and renting a business center at a nearby hotel, and they were commuting to the hotel and working there for almost 2 months. And I was able to, I put together a GoFundMe, asking for people if they could donate just to help repair houses, roofs and everything. But that happiness came about 6 or 7 days after the typhoon, when 100% of my team came back. What they might not have had power internet, but they were alive and they were good. They might not have had food, they might not have had water, but those problems I can fix.
Yeah, and you went into fixing stuff right away. I remember from your post, like I said, creating a GoFundMe account, making sure people had housing, making sure they were taken care of in that window.
Yeah, I raised between Facebook fundraising and the GoFundMe account close to $4,000. And I mean, I spent a lot more than that, but let me tell you, that helped. And it also goes to show just how important it is to build a brand and to build an audience, because, you know, one day it's easy to say that, oh, I don't need a brand, I don't need an audience. But you know what? One day when something happens, somebody else does. You know, the reason I was able to raise that $4,000, it might not seem like a lot of money to some people, but in the Philippines, that's a lot of money. You know, in the Philippines, the average person makes $9 a day. Obviously, my team makes much more than that. But, you know, $4,000 in today's price, I'm going to whip out my calculator. It's 54 times 4,000. That's 216,000 pesos.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of change. It's a good chunk of change. So, you know, they were able to buy wood to help repair their roofs. They were able to buy new windows. They were able to get food supplies, groceries. I had people that were literally, because see, here's a problem too. You can't trust the government there. And every time there's a charity worker or whatever, you know, like these things, these nonprofits, whatever, the money hardly goes to the people. So I wanted to use my entrepreneur prowess to get money directly to my people. And it was a huge effort. A lot of people were involved. I definitely am not taking all the credit. I was just the person who coordinated it. And that made me feel very happy.
No, I think that's, you know, great. And I remember your posts during that time. Like, I remember when you finally had your head count and you knew everybody was alive, because everybody didn't survive that storm, if I remember correctly from news reports. And you, like I said, I just remember the relief you had when all of that was happening. So thanks for sharing that story, because that's a big one, and it involved so many people, and it also shows how much you care about your employees, and relationships, we do know, are also another key to happiness. So I'm going to move us on to something just a little more personal, and maybe even a little bit more fun. So happiness is personal is the first principle of the book, Practical Happiness. And I think we live in this world of groupthink to some degree, and this other world of competitive happiness that social media has played into. So we sometimes forget that happiness really does start within. So, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do things that make your spouse happy or make your friends happy or your kids happy, even though if they're not on your happiness as personal list. Those are other types of happiness. They give you, you're giving, you show love that way. So that's different ones. But what is one of your happiness is personals that might not be your spouses or your kids or your friends? I know you travel a lot and you have friends everywhere. So what is one of your happiness is personals, kind of one of your happiness go-tos?
Video games.
That was my hunch. That was just my hunch. And you were actually kind when you were doing one of your challenges about something with gaming. You're like, no, you can figure it out. And I'm like, I can barely get my iPad to turn on. I couldn't even get my earbuds connected.
You know,
so, but
I have gaming. Here. Is it okay if I share another story?
Yeah.
This might be the story people need. I mean, I understand not everybody's going to have a team in the Philippines getting wiped out, but maybe a story they can relate to is growing up alone. You know, I have a little sister. Her name's Jamie. She's 1 year younger than me, but we never really connected at many levels. We still don't to this day. I love her to death, but we're very different people, even though we look the same. I feel bad for her. She looks just like me. But, you know, when I was a baby, my mom and dad whisked away when I was only 1 month old after my birthplace near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and moved to California with my dad's father-in-law, which is my mom's dad. And my grandpa had a little tiny room for us that we slept in. That's where we lived. You know, we moved a lot. I lived in California. I lived in Mooresville, North Carolina. I lived in a place called Huntersville. You know, I never really lived somewhere long enough to have real friends. And, you know, I kind of built a relationship with the Nintendo. And that was my comfort. And playing video games for me was a solid, because, you know, the architecture that developers built on, it was constant. If I logged in on Mario Brothers in California, or I logged in on Mario Brothers in North Carolina or South Carolina or Portland or wherever the hell I lived, it was the same. And you know, happiness was actually more of just comfort and having something that was consistent, which was not very much in my life. My parents worked very hard. My mom was going to nursing school on food stamps, and my dad was working at the 5-minute car wash. You know, my dad's never had a stable job his whole life. He still doesn't. My mom's always been the breadwinner for the family. My dad, to this day, probably makes less than $1,000 a month, you know. So to me, the women in my family have always been the providers. My grandma, who just retired in her late 80s, I think she was 89 when she retired. You know, my mom, who is an oncology nurse, and now she's a radiation therapy nurse. So for me, video games have always been a comfort, a happiness of sorts that I could rely on, and an escape, per se, to nostalgia and maybe an earlier day in my life. And you know, it's funny, a lot of people tell me that I don't look or feel or act like I'm 40. And I have to say, it's probably because of the gaming. You know, I think it keeps you young, it keeps your responses good. And for me, it's something that, you know, I wear a lot of hats. There's a missing hat on my wall. It's this hat. And this is the Savage Marketer hat, right? But I have a hat on my wall for everything that I've done, everything that I've been involved in, from the crypto gaming team to the Hero brand agency to branded media to VA staffer up here, another VA staffer hat here, to working with Grant Cardone, cash flow, to some of the crypto stuff I'm in right here, like DeFi Kingdoms, more crypto gaming stuff, Savage Marketer, branded media. This is my Freedom Music events. All of these hats have a story. There's an experience that I was in up here in Utah where I became a certified rescue team, where I literally learned how to do search and rescue. So the point is that in life, there are things that you need to have some certainty. And I think that certainty is a form of happiness.
Yeah, we'll have to consider that for our next, when we do our 31 types of happiness updates. We've done 2 or 3 over the course of our 2 decades. So that is a good one. No, and I like that you mentioned that, because sometimes we do have things that we just like to be the same. That's sort of what chain restaurants are sort of about, when you're like traveling and you're just like, I want to know if I go to XYZ, I'm going to have something that tastes, you know, like I expect. Yeah. I expect, like, sometimes I just need that consistency for whatever reason. But I do think gaming is different things for different people. So thanks for sharing that. So you know what, Jeff, we're kind of out of time. So I really, really appreciate you joining us and sharing your happy for the 22nd Happiness Happens Month. And I love your hat collection. I do have to ask, do you have a sporting team in that collection at all, or you're not into regular sports, just the gaming sports?
You know, I've always been a Giants fan.
Okay.
Um, you know,
Giants baseball, Giants
yeah,
football.
Giants baseball,
Okay,
yeah,
in San Francisco. They
and
beat my Texas Rangers, but okay.
mainly because my grandpa loved the San Francisco Giants, and they have a beautiful stadium. And if I definitely consider myself more of a Bay Area guy, although I grew up in Central California for the most part. But it's funny because, like what you said, I actually don't relate too much to actual sports than I do esports. So yeah, definitely video games, esports, competitive gaming is stuff that I'm excited about. Ironically, I went for a jog this morning, and I don't know if some people get happiness through working out and fitness and exercise. Probably some people do.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I get joy from winning. I like playing games. I'm very competitive. So actually, I just started this new game, and right here is a tennis shoe from the game,
Okay.
which is a crypto game. And one last thing you guys are going to be able to see, which is pretty cool, is that today, right before this call, I actually went on a jog. Yes, a real jog.
Did you win
And
crypto?
yeah, I did. And I earned crypto for it. And it actually shows me my running record so far. I have ran, like today, right before this call, I ran 8 minutes, a total of 1 kilometer, and I earned $9.43 on my run.
Wow, that is pretty cool. So if we have people who like to win but don't like to run, they maybe should check out your crypto game. So
See,
you might be getting some emails.
if you gamify stuff, I actually do it. So I've been trying to figure out ways to gamify my life because, like I said, that's my happiness. So if I can tie my happiness into things that I need to do in life, I will actually do them. And there's my trick.
I love that because it's true. We all have to figure out what our personal bridge to happiness is sometimes, and I think yours sounds fun. Like I said, you're always out having fun. So thanks for sharing
Thank
these
you, Pamela.
stories, and thanks for reading my book.
Oh, not only reading it, but geez, like, man, putting it to action. So guys, I really, really appreciate everything you've done, Pamela, for everybody to keep us all happy. Thanks.
Thank you.